I was fired and publicly shamed, then bought the entire business for 50 cents. The morning of March 15th started like any other Tuesday at Technova Solutions. Ava Williams adjusted her blazer as she walked through the gleaming lobby, her heels clicking against the marble floor with the confidence of someone who had earned her place. At 32, she was the youngest senior legal consultant in the company's history, and her track record spoke for itself. 0 lawsuits lost, millions saved in legal fees, and a reputation that made opposing counsel think twice before challenging Technova. "Morning, Ava," called out Marcus from accounting, raising his coffee cup in greeting. She smiled back, unaware that within the hour, Marcus would be avoiding her eyes like she carried a contagious disease. Ava's corner office overlooked the bustling downtown district, a view she'd worked 5 years to earn. Her desk was organized to perfection, case files stacked by priority, her law degree from Harvard prominently displayed, and a photo of her late father, also a lawyer, watching over her daily victories. She was reviewing the Morrison contract when her assistant, Jenny, knocked frantically. "Ava, Mr. Hawk wants to see you in the conference room."
"Now."
Jenny's voice carried an unusual tension that made Ava's stomach flutter with unease. Richard Hawk, Technova's CEO, was a man who commanded attention wherever he went. At 55, his silver hair and expensive suits gave him the appearance of success, but Ava had always sensed something calculating behind his practiced smile. She'd worked directly with him on several high-stakes deals, and while their relationship was professional, she'd noticed how he seemed to take credit for successes while distancing himself from failures. The conference room was packed. Every department head, most of the senior staff, and even some junior employees were crammed inside. The air was thick with curiosity and nervous energy. Ava's heart began to race as she realized this wasn't a routine meeting. This was a spectacle. There she is," Richard's voice boomed as Ava entered. His tone was different, colder than she'd ever heard. "Please take a seat, Ms. Williams." All eyes were on her as she moved to an empty chair, feeling like a defendant walking to the stand. Her closest colleague, Sarah from HR, wouldn't meet her gaze. David from marketing was staring at his hands. The silence was deafening. Richard stood at the head of the table, a manila folder in his hands like evidence in a trial. "I've called this meeting because we have a serious matter to address. It concerns financial irregularities that have come to our attention." Ava's pulse quickened. Financial irregularities? She handled legal matters, not finances. Her expertise was in contracts, compliance, and corporate law, nowhere near the company's money management. "Over the past 6 months," Richard continued, his voice carrying across the room like a prosecutor's opening statement, "we've discovered systematic misappropriation of company funds totaling over $200,000. Money that was supposed to go toward our charity initiatives and employee benefits has been diverted for personal use." Murmurs erupted around the table. Ava felt the room spinning slightly as she tried to process what she was hearing. Misappropriation? Charity funds? She had no access to any of those accounts. "That's impossible," she said, standing up instinctively. "I don't handle financial transactions. My department doesn't even." "Sit down, Ms. Williams." Richard's voice cut through her protest like a blade. "We have evidence." He opened the manila folder with theatrical precision, pulling out bank statements and transaction records. From where Ava sat, she could see numbers highlighted in yellow, but the details were too small to read from across the table. "These transfers were authorized using your login credentials," Richard announced, holding up the documents for everyone to see. "Money moved from our charitable foundation account to a personal account registered under your name." The room erupted in shocked whispers. Ava felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. Her login credentials? A personal account? None of this made sense. She'd built her entire career on integrity and meticulous attention to legal details. The thought of stealing from charity funds was so absurd it would have been laughable if not for the deadly serious faces surrounding her. "This is insane," Ava said, her voice stronger now as her legal training kicked in. "I need to see those documents. I need to examine the evidence you're claiming." "The evidence has been reviewed by our forensic accounting team," Richard interrupted, his eyes never leaving hers. It's conclusive. Ava's mind raced. Forensic accounting team? When had they hired forensic accountants? And why wasn't she, as the senior legal consultant, informed about any investigation into financial irregularities? You had access to the charity fund passwords through your work on the Morrison Foundation partnership, Richard continued, weaving his narrative with the skill of someone who had rehearsed this moment. You used that access to systematically steal from funds meant to help underprivileged children learn technology skills. The mention of stealing from children's charity funds sent a wave of nausea through Ava. She looked around the room, seeing the faces of colleagues who had trusted her, worked with her, celebrated successes with her. Now they were looking at her like she was a stranger, or worse, a criminal. Richard, this is absolutely false, Ava said, standing again despite his earlier command. I demand to see the actual evidence. I want my own accountant to review. Your employment with Technova Solutions is terminated, effective immediately, Richard announced, his words hitting the room like a gavel striking wood. Security will escort you out. You have 15 minutes to collect your personal items. The finality of his statement stunned everyone into silence. Ava felt the world tilt on its axis. 5 years of building her career, her reputation, her life, destroyed in a matter of minutes by accusations that made no sense. You can't do this without due process, Ava said, her legal expertise finally breaking through the shock. I have rights under my employment contract. I'm entitled to. Check your contract more carefully, Ms. Williams. Richard's smile was cold and calculating. Section 12.3 covers immediate termination for financial misconduct. No further process required. 2 security guards had appeared at the conference room door, their presence making the situation brutally real. Colleagues who had been her friends just an hour ago were now staring at her with a mixture of shock, disappointment, and something that hurt even worse, belief in her guilt. As Ava walked the hallway toward her office for the last time, flanked by security guards like a common criminal, she could hear the whispers starting behind her. The story was already being written, and she wasn't the author. In her office, she grabbed the photo of her father, her law degree, and a few personal items while one of the guards watched her every move. The other employees who passed by the door quickened their steps, unwilling to be associated with the scandal that was unfolding. This isn't over, Ava said quietly to herself as she took one last look at the office that had been her sanctuary. Her father's photo seemed to nod in agreement from her hands. He taught her that justice wasn't just about winning cases. It was about fighting for truth when everyone else was willing to accept lies. As she walked through the lobby for the final time, Ava Williams made a promise to herself and to her father's memory. She would clear her name. She would expose the truth. And she would make sure that whoever had orchestrated this public humiliation would pay for destroying everything she'd worked to build. The automatic doors closed behind her with a soft whoosh, cutting her off from the life she'd known. But as Ava stood on the sidewalk, clutching her belongings and facing an uncertain future, she didn't feel defeated. She felt determined. The real battle was just beginning. 3 weeks after her humiliating exit from Technova, Ava Williams sat in her cramped apartment, surrounded by legal books and empty coffee cups. Sleep had become a stranger. Every news outlet in the city had picked up the story of the charity thief, and her name was now synonymous with corporate fraud. Former friends crossed the street to avoid her. Her mother called daily, begging her to just move on and start fresh somewhere else. But Ava couldn't move on. Something about that conference room scene felt wrong. Too orchestrated, too perfect. Richard's performance had been flawless, almost rehearsed. And the timing bothered her most of all. Why now? She muttered to herself, staring at her laptop screen. She'd been working on the Morrison Foundation partnership for months, and just last week, she discovered some questionable clauses in their subsidiary agreements. She'd planned to bring them to Richard's attention this week. That's when the first piece clicked into place. Ava opened her personal laptop. Thankfully, she'd always been paranoid about keeping work and personal devices separate. She began researching Technova's recent financial activities using publicly available information. Annual reports, SEC filings, charity foundation disclosures, anything she could access legally. What she found made her blood run cold. The Morrison Foundation partnership wasn't just about charity work. Hidden within the complex subsidiary structure was a web of shell companies, each one designed to move money in ways that would be invisible to casual observers. But Ava wasn't a casual observer. She was a legal expert who specialized in corporate structures. "My God," she whispered, seeing the pattern emerge on her screen. Money was flowing into the Morrison Foundation, but it wasn't flowing out to help children learn technology. Instead, it was being funneled through a series of consulting fees to companies that, upon deeper research, seemed to exist only on paper. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop digging or you'll regret it." Ava's hands trembled slightly as she stared at the message. Someone was watching her, tracking her research. But instead of fear, she felt a surge of vindication. If someone wanted her to stop digging, it meant there was something worth finding. The next morning, she called her old law school roommate, Elena Rodriguez, who now worked as a forensic accountant in Chicago. Elena had always been brilliant with numbers, able to spot financial fraud the way others spotted typos. "Elena, I need your help," Ava said after explaining her situation. "But I need you to know this could be dangerous." "Dangerous how?" Elena's voice was cautious but intrigued. "I think I stumbled onto something big right before I was fired. I think that's why I was fired." Elena was quiet for a long moment. "Send me everything you have."
"But Ava?"
"Be careful who you trust. If this is as big as you think, there could be powerful people involved." Over the next week, Elena worked her magic with the financial records. What she found was staggering. The Morrison Foundation was just the tip of the iceberg. Technova had been operating an elaborate fraud scheme for over 2 years, moving millions of dollars through fake consulting contracts, phantom employees, and charitable organizations that existed only to launder money. But the most shocking discovery came when Elena traced the personal accounts receiving the fraudulent payments. "Ava, you need to sit down for this," Elena said during their encrypted video call. "The account they claim is yours? It was opened using your identity, but look at the signature cards." Elena held up copies of the bank documents. The signatures were close to Ava's, but not perfect. More importantly, the account had been opened on a day when Ava could prove she was in court across town, representing Technova in a different case. "Someone forged my identity to create this account," Ava breathed. "But who would have access to enough of my personal information to?" She stopped mid-sentence as the realization hit her. HR files, personnel records, signature samples from contract approvals. Richard Hawk had access to everything he needed to create a convincing forgery of her identity. "Elena, can you trace where the money went after it hit that fake account?" "Already on it." Elena's fingers flew across her keyboard. "This is incredible, Ava." The money was immediately transferred out to an account in the Cayman Islands. And guess who's listed as the beneficial owner of the shell company that owns that account? Ava's heart pounded as Elena turned her screen around. There, in black and white corporate filings, was Richard Hawk's name buried deep in a complex ownership structure. "He's been stealing for years," Ava whispered. "He created the fake account in my name to frame me, probably because I was getting too close to discovering the Morrison Foundation irregularities." But Elena had found something even more damning. "Ava, look at this. He's not working alone. There are 3 other accounts receiving payments from this scheme. Board members Margaret Chin and David Foster, plus someone called Jay Morrison who I suspect isn't connected to the real Morrison Foundation at all." The scope of the corruption was breathtaking. This wasn't just embezzlement. It was an organized criminal enterprise operating within Technova's corporate structure. And Ava had been the perfect scapegoat, someone with enough access to make the frame-up believable, but not enough power to fight back effectively. "We have them," Ava said, feeling her first surge of hope in weeks. "But Elena, I need more than just financial records. I need someone on the inside." That's when Ava remembered Jenny, her former assistant. Jenny had always been observant, loyal, and most importantly, she was still working at Technova. If anyone could help gather additional evidence from the inside, it would be her. The call to Jenny was risky, but Ava had no choice. When Jenny answered, her voice was hushed and nervous.
"Ava?"
"Oh my God, I can't believe you're calling." everyone here thinks. Jenny, I need you to listen very carefully, Ava interrupted. I'm innocent and I can prove it, but I need your help to expose the real criminals. There was a long pause before Jenny spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. I knew something was wrong. Mr. Hawk has been acting strange since you left, and there have been all these mysterious meetings with the board members. What do you need me to do? As Ava outlined her plan, she felt the familiar rush of building a legal case. But this time, it wasn't just about winning. This time, it was about justice, redemption, and exposing a corruption so deep it threatened to destroy everything Teknova claimed to represent. The hunter was about to become the hunted. 2 months after her firing, Ava sat across from Jonathan Mitchell, senior partner at Mitchell & Associates, one of the most prestigious law firms in the city. The evidence Elena had compiled was spread across his mahogany conference table like battle plans before a fight. This is extraordinary, Jonathan said, adjusting his glasses as he reviewed the financial records. If these documents are authentic, you're not just looking at embezzlement. This is racketeering, money laundering, and conspiracy at the highest levels. Ava nodded, her confidence growing with each page he examined. I want to file for wrongful termination and defamation, but more importantly, I want them prosecuted for the fraud they've been running. Jonathan leaned back in his leather chair. Ava, I'll be honest with you. This is going to be expensive and dangerous. Richard Hawk has deep pockets and powerful connections. Are you prepared for what's coming? I've already lost everything that mattered to me professionally, Ava replied. I'm not backing down now. Within a week, the lawsuit was filed. The media, which had crucified Ava just months earlier, now seized on the new story with hungry enthusiasm. Former employee claims corporate conspiracy, screamed the headlines. Tech executive accused of multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. But Richard Hawk wasn't going to go quietly. The first sign of retaliation came when Jenny called Ava in tears. They fired me today, she sobbed. Mr. Hawk said they were restructuring my position, but I know it's because they suspect I'm helping you. I'm sorry, Jenny. I never wanted you to get hurt because of this. It's okay, Jenny said, her voice growing stronger. Because before they escorted me out, I managed to copy some files from Mr. Hawk's computer. Files I think you're going to want to see. The files Jenny had risked her job to obtain were more damaging than anything Ava had hoped to find. Email chains between Richard and the board members discussing the Williams problem and how to neutralize the threat. More chilling were the messages about other employees who had asked too many questions over the years, employees who had been quietly transferred, demoted, or fired. Look at this one, Elena said during their late-night strategy session at Ava's apartment. She pointed to an email from Margaret Chen, one of the board members involved in the fraud. She's worried about the forensic audit you are planning to recommend for the Morrison Foundation. That's why they moved so fast to frame you. But the most shocking discovery came buried in Richard's personal calendar files. A meeting scheduled for the day before Ava's firing, titled simply Final Solution, AW. They planned this for weeks, Ava realized, staring at the calendar entry. This wasn't a reaction to discovering fraud. This was a premeditated attack to stop me from exposing them. The evidence was overwhelming, but Richard's counterattack was swift and brutal. Within days of the lawsuit becoming public, Ava found herself facing a barrage of legal motions designed to drain her resources and destroy her credibility. His lawyers filed a countersuit claiming she was attempting to extort money from Teknova through false accusations. They leaked information to the press suggesting she was mentally unstable, unable to accept responsibility for her actions. Most devastatingly, they produced a witness, Marcus from accounting, who claimed he had seen Ava accessing financial systems she shouldn't have had permission to use. It's all lies, Ava told Jonathan after reading Marcus's sworn statement. Marcus barely spoke to me, and I never accessed any financial systems. I believe you, Jonathan said, but we need to prove it. And we need to be prepared for worse. Richard's lawyers are playing dirty, which means they're desperate. The desperation became clear when Ava's apartment was broken into. Nothing valuable was stolen, but her personal computer was destroyed, and files related to the case were scattered across her floor. The message was clear. back down, or face the consequences. Instead of intimidating her, the break-in only strengthened Ava's resolve. She moved in with Elena temporarily and hired private security to protect the evidence they'd compiled. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Sarah Kim, the HR director who had avoided Ava's eyes during the firing, called her directly. "I can't live with this anymore." Sarah's voice shook over the phone. "I need to tell you what really happened." They met at a coffee shop across town, Sarah nervously glancing around as if expecting to be watched. "Richard came to me 3 days before your firing," Sarah began. "He told me you were suspected of financial fraud and that I needed to prepare termination paperwork immediately. But Ava, the evidence he showed me, it didn't feel right." "What do you mean?" "The bank statements looked too clean, too perfect. In 15 years of HR work, I've never seen fraud evidence that was so neatly packaged. Real fraud is messy, complicated. This looked like someone had carefully constructed a narrative." Sarah reached into her purse and pulled out a flash drive. "I made copies of everything he gave me. I was planning to destroy them, but something kept stopping me. Maybe it was guilt, or maybe it was instinct." The files on Sarah's flash drive were the smoking gun Ava needed. They showed earlier versions of the bank statements, with obvious signs of digital manipulation, timestamps that didn't match, signatures that had been copied and pasted from other documents. Most importantly, metadata showing that the documents had been created on Richard's personal computer just hours before Ava's firing. "We have them," Jonathan said after reviewing Sarah's evidence. "This isn't just fraud anymore. It's criminal conspiracy, document forgery, and obstruction of justice." But even as victory seemed within reach, Ava received one final warning. A single photo slipped under her door, a picture of her walking to the coffee shop with Sarah, with a red X drawn over both their faces. The fight was escalating, but Ava Williams wasn't the same woman who had been humiliated in that conference room months ago. She was stronger, smarter, and armed with the truth. Richard Hawk had awakened something in her that he would soon regret. The final battle was about to begin. 6 months into the legal battle, Teknova was bleeding money faster than Richard Hawk could contain the damage. The media had turned the case into a corporate thriller, with daily coverage of each new revelation. Stock prices had plummeted by 40%, and 3 major clients had already terminated their contracts, citing concerns about Teknova's ethical standards. Ava watched the morning news from Jonathan's office, sipping coffee as the anchor discussed Teknova's latest quarterly losses. The company that once seemed untouchable now faces an uncertain future as allegations of widespread corruption continue to mount. "They're feeling the pressure," Jonathan observed, turning off the television. "My sources tell me their legal fees alone are approaching $2 million, and that's not counting the damage to their reputation." As if on cue, Jonathan's secretary buzzed through the intercom. "Mr. Mitchell, Richard Hawk's attorney, is on line 1. He says it's urgent." Jonathan and Ava exchanged knowing looks. After months of aggressive legal maneuvering and public denials, Richard was finally ready to talk. The call was brief, but significant. Richard's lawyer, the expensive David Sterling from Sterling and Cross, requested an immediate settlement conference. "My client is prepared to discuss resolution," he said carefully, the legal equivalent of waving a white flag. 3 days later, Ava sat in a neutral conference room at the Marriott downtown, facing the man who had destroyed her life. Richard Hawk looked like he had aged 5 years in 6 months. His usual confident demeanor was replaced by the nervous energy of someone backed into a corner. Beside him sat Margaret Chen and David Foster, the board members Elena had identified as co-conspirators. They wouldn't meet Ava's eyes, their expensive lawyers whispering urgently in their ears. "Let's cut through the formalities," Sterling began, opening his briefcase with practiced efficiency. "My clients are prepared to offer Ms. Williams a settlement of $2 million in exchange for dropping all claims and signing a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement." Jonathan didn't even pause to consider the offer. "Absolutely not. Your clients committed fraud, conspiracy, and destroyed my client's reputation. $2 million doesn't even cover the legal fees, let alone the damages to her career." "Fine," Sterling replied, clearly having expected this response. $4 million, plus a glowing letter of recommendation. That's more than generous for someone who is terminated for cause. Ava felt her anger flare at the continued lie, but she kept her expression neutral. She had learned to play poker during these months of legal warfare. "We want $8 million, Jonathan countered, plus a public apology acknowledging that Ms. Williams was wrongfully terminated and that she had no involvement in any financial misconduct. Richard finally spoke, his voice strained. "That's impossible. A public apology would be admitting guilt. We can't." "You are guilty," Ava interrupted, her voice cutting through his protest. "We have the evidence. We have your emails planning my destruction. We have proof you forged documents to frame me." The room fell silent. Richard's face flushed red, but he said nothing. Sterling cleared his throat. "My clients are prepared to go to $6 million, but the non-disclosure agreement is non-negotiable. No public statements, no media interviews, no acknowledgement of wrongdoing." It was then that Ava played her masterstroke, an idea that had been forming in her mind for weeks. "I don't want your money," she said quietly, causing everyone in the room to look at her in surprise. "I want something else." "What?" Sterling asked suspiciously. Ava smiled for the first time in months. "I want to buy Teknova." The silence that followed was deafening. Richard's mouth literally fell open. Margaret Chin spilled coffee on her legal papers. Even Jonathan looked stunned. That's ridiculous," Richard sputtered. "The company is worth $50 million, even with the current problems." "Actually," Ava said, pulling out a folder Elena had prepared, "according to your own financial statements and the current market conditions, Teknova is worth about $30 million. But that's before accounting for the legal liability you're facing, the client departures, and the inevitable criminal charges." She spread the analysis across the table. "Factor in the fraud investigation, the civil penalties, and the complete destruction of your reputation, and I estimate the company will be worth negative $10 million within 6 months." Sterling was frantically reading Elena's projections, his face growing paler with each page. "Here's my offer," Ava continued, her voice steady and confident. "You transfer complete ownership of Teknova Solutions to me for the nominal sum of 50 cents. In exchange, I drop the civil lawsuit and agree not to pursue additional damages beyond what the criminal investigation uncovers." "You can't be serious," Margaret Chin finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm completely serious," Ava replied. "You have 2 choices. Sell me the company for 50 cents and walk away with your freedom to start over, or fight this battle until the company is worthless and you're all facing federal prison sentences." Richard's hands were shaking as he reached for his water glass. "This is extortion." "No," Ava said calmly. "This is justice. You destroyed my life to cover up your crimes. Now I'm offering you a way to salvage something from the wreckage you created." Sterling requested a recess, and the conspirators huddled in whispered conversation for 20 minutes. When they returned, Richard's defeat was written across his face. "We need time to consider this," Sterling said weakly. "You have 24 hours, Jonathan replied. "After that, we proceed to trial, and the offer is off the table." As they filed out of the conference room, Richard stopped beside Ava's chair. "You think you've won," he said quietly, his voice filled with venom. "But running a company is different from filing lawsuits. You'll destroy everything I built." Ava looked up at him with the confidence of someone who had already won the battle. "No, Richard. I'm going to save it from what you turned it into." The next morning, Sterling called with their answer. Teknova Solutions would be transferred to Ava Williams for the sum of 50 cents, payable upon signing. The woman who had been publicly humiliated and fired in disgrace was about to become the owner of the very company that had tried to destroy her. Poetic justice had never felt so sweet. The first day Ava Williams walked into Teknova as its owner, the entire building seemed to hold its breath. Word had spread quickly through the office grapevine. The woman they had watched being humiliated and escorted out by security was now their CEO. The same conference room where Richard had destroyed her reputation was now her boardroom. Ava had spent 2 weeks preparing for this moment, assembling a team of trusted advisors who would help her navigate the complex task of rebuilding a corrupted company. Elena had agreed to serve as chief financial officer, bringing her forensic accounting expertise to clean up the financial mess. Jonathan Mitchell had recommended Sarah Chen, a corporate restructuring specialist, to serve as chief operating officer, no relation to the disgraced board member Margaret Chen. But the most important addition to her team was someone unexpected, Jenny, her former assistant, who would now serve as director of internal investigations. "Good morning, Technova," Ava said as she addressed the entire company through the intercom system from what had been Richard's corner office. Her voice was calm, but carried the authority of someone who had fought for every inch of respect she commanded. "I know many of you are confused, worried, and probably wondering what happens next. Let me be clear. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to save this company and restore the integrity that should have been its foundation from the beginning." The first order of business was cleaning house. Within hours of taking control, Ava had security escort Margaret Chen and David Foster from the building. Unlike her own humiliating exit, theirs was handled with professional discretion, but the message was unmistakable. The era of corruption was over. Marcus from accounting, who had provided false testimony against Ava, submitted his resignation before she could fire him. His farewell email was brief. "I'm sorry. I was scared and made the wrong choice." But Ava's real focus wasn't on punishment. It was on transformation. She called an all-hands meeting in the main auditorium, the same space where Richard used to give his grandiose presentations about Technova's commitment to excellence. "I won't pretend this transition will be easy," Ava told the assembled employees. "This company was built on lies, and lies have a way of poisoning everything they touch. But beneath the corruption, there's still something worth saving, and that's all of you." She outlined her vision for the new Technova: complete financial transparency, ethical business practices, and a genuine commitment to the charitable work they had been pretending to do. The Morrison Foundation partnership would continue, but this time the money would actually help children learn technology skills. The transformation wasn't just about policies and procedures. Ava knew she had to address the culture that had allowed Richard's corruption to flourish unchecked. "I want to hear from every one of you," she announced. "If you witnessed questionable practices, if you were pressured to stay silent about wrongdoing, if you have ideas about how we can do better, my door is open." The response was overwhelming. Employees who had been living with guilt and fear for years began coming forward. Tom from IT revealed that he had been ordered to delete financial records. Lisa from marketing admitted she had been asked to create fake testimonials for the Morrison Foundation. Even senior managers began sharing stories about being pressured to overlook Richard's increasingly erratic behavior. But the most shocking revelation came from an unexpected source: Dr. Sarah Kim, the HR director who had helped expose Richard's document forgery. "There's something else you need to know," Sarah said during a private meeting in Ava's office. Richard wasn't the only one involved in the fraud. There was someone else, someone who helped him plan the scheme from the beginning. Ava leaned forward, her pulse quickening. "Who?" "Jonathan Morrison," Sarah replied. "He's not just a charitable foundation partner. He's Richard's cousin, and he's been helping to launder money through fake charities for over 3 years. The revelation hit Ava like a physical blow. Jonathan Morrison, the man whose foundation she was planning to work with legitimately, was part of the conspiracy. Worse, he was still out there potentially planning his next move. "We need to contact the FBI immediately," Elena said when Ava shared this information with her core team. "If Morrison is involved, this fraud scheme is bigger than we thought." While Elena worked with federal investigators to track down Morrison and freeze his assets, Ava focused on rebuilding Technova's operations. She implemented new financial controls, requiring multiple approvals for any transaction over $5,000. She established an anonymous whistleblower system so employees could report concerns without fear of retaliation. Most importantly, she began the process of actually fulfilling Technova's charitable commitments. The money that Richard had stolen would be replaced from company reserves, and every dollar donated would be tracked and verified. The stock price, which had crashed during the scandal, began to slowly recover as news of Ava's reform spread. 3 former clients who had terminated their contracts reached out to discuss renewing their partnerships. But the real victory came when Ava received a call from the actual Morrison Foundation, the legitimate charity that Jonathan Morrison had been impersonating. "Ms. Williams," the foundation's director said, "we've been following your story in the news. We had no idea someone was using our name for fraudulent purposes. We'd like to discuss a real partnership with Technova, one that actually helps children." As Ava hung up the phone, she realized that she had done more than just clear her name or take revenge on the people who wronged her. She had transformed a corrupt organization into something genuinely valuable to society. The FBI's arrest of Jonathan Morrison 2 weeks later made national headlines. Richard Hawk, Margaret Chen, and David Foster were indicted on federal charges of conspiracy, fraud, and money laundering. The investigation revealed that their scheme had stolen over $4 million from various charitable organizations. But for Ava, the most satisfying moment came when she received a handwritten letter from a 12-year-old girl named Maria in Chicago. The letter was simple. "Thank you for the computers you sent to our school. I learned to code, and I want to be a programmer when I grow up." That letter, framed and hanging in her office, reminded Ava every day why the fight had been worth it. She hadn't just saved her own reputation, she had saved Technova's soul. The final chapter of her transformation was about to begin. 1 year after taking control of Technova, Ava Williams stood at the podium of the same auditorium where Richard Hawk had once delivered his empty speeches about corporate excellence. But today was different. Today, she was addressing the largest employee gathering in the company's history, with representatives from major tech publications, industry leaders, and even some of the children who had benefited from Technova's genuine charitable programs. The transformation had been remarkable. Technova's stock price had not only recovered, but reached an all-time high. The company had been featured on the cover of Tech Business Weekly as the Phoenix Company, rising from corporate ashes. Most importantly, they had actually delivered on their promises, providing technology education to over 5,000 underprivileged children across the country. Exactly 1 year ago, Ava began, her voice carrying the confidence of someone who had been tested by fire and emerged stronger. "Many of you watched me being escorted out of this building in shame and disgrace. I was accused of stealing from children's charities, publicly humiliated, and left to rebuild my life from nothing." The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. "But sometimes," she continued, a slight smile playing at her lips, "the worst thing that happens to you becomes the doorway to the best thing that could happen to you." The applause that erupted was genuine and thunderous. Even former colleagues who had once avoided her eyes were now looking at her with respect and admiration. Ava's gaze found Marcus, who had returned to work after providing testimony against Richard Hawk in exchange for immunity. He had personally apologized to her and worked tirelessly to help rebuild the company's financial systems. Redemption, she had learned, was possible for everyone willing to fight for it. "The past year has taught me that integrity isn't just about doing the right thing when it's easy," Ava said. "It's about doing the right thing when everything is falling apart, when everyone is against you, and when the cost of standing up for truth seems higher than you can pay." She gestured to a large screen behind her, which displayed photos of children in classrooms, working on computers donated by Technova. "This is why we exist. Not to make ourselves rich through fraud and deception, but to use technology to create genuine opportunities for others." The presentation continued with Technova's impressive turnaround statistics, revenue up 35%, employee satisfaction at an all-time high, and 0 ethical violations reported in 12 months. But the numbers that mattered most to Ava were different. 127 new computer labs established in underserved schools, 3,400 children who had completed basic coding courses, and 89 scholarship recipients now pursuing technology degrees. After the presentation, Ava retreated to her office, the same space where Richard Hawk had once plotted her destruction. She had redecorated completely, replacing his ego wall of awards with pictures of the children who had benefited from Technova's programs. Her father's photo still held the place of honor on her desk, but now it was surrounded by letters from grateful teachers, parents, and students. Jenny knocked and entered, carrying a stack of newspapers. "The reviews are in," she said with a grin, spreading the publications across Ava's desk. The headlines were everything Ava could have hoped for. Tech CEO's incredible journey from fired employee to industry leader. How one woman transformed corporate culture overnight. The 50 cents purchase that changed everything. But the article that meant the most was in the Legal Times. Ava Williams, when fighting for justice changes an entire industry. The piece had been written by her old Harvard law professor, who called her a shining example of how legal expertise, moral courage, and unwavering determination can overcome even the most powerful corruption. As evening approached, Ava found herself alone in the office, reflecting on the incredible journey that had brought her here. Her phone buzzed with a text from Elena. "Dinner tomorrow? I want to hear about your plans for the international expansion." International expansion. A year ago, Ava had been worried about paying rent. Now she was planning to take Technova's educational programs global, starting with partnerships in Brazil and Kenya. Her computer chimed with an email notification. It was from Maria, the 12-year-old girl from Chicago, whose letter had meant so much to Ava during the darkest days of Technova's transformation. "Dear Ms. Williams," the email began, "I wanted to tell you that I just won first place in our city's coding competition. The program Technova sponsored at my school changed my life. I'm going to study computer science in college, and someday I want to start a company that helps other kids like you helped me. Thank you for not giving up." Tears filled Ava's eyes as she read Maria's words. This was why she had fought so hard. This was why she had refused to take Richard's settlement money and disappear. This was why she had risked everything to expose the truth. Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. The caller ID showed her mother's number. "Ava, honey, I just saw you on the evening news." Her mother's voice was filled with pride. "Your father would be so proud of you. You've done more than clear your name. You've shown the world what real integrity looks like." As Ava hung up the phone, she walked to the window overlooking the city. The same view that had once represented her professional ambitions now represented something much more meaningful. The power of truth, the importance of fighting for what's right, and the incredible possibility of turning your worst defeat into your greatest victory. Richard Hawk was serving a 7-year federal prison sentence. Margaret Chin and David Foster had received similar sentences and would never work in corporate America again. Jonathan Morrison's extensive fraud network had been dismantled, resulting in the recovery of over $12 million that was returned to legitimate charities. But Ava's real victory wasn't their punishment. It was the transformation she had achieved. She had taken a corrupt company and turned it into a force for genuine good in the world. As she prepared to leave the office, Ava looked one last time at her father's photograph. "We did it, Dad," she whispered. Justice prevailed. The woman who had been publicly fired and shamed had become the CEO who bought the entire business for 50 cents and transformed it into something worth far more than money could measure. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. Sometimes the best revenge is proving that you're better than the people who tried to destroy you.